Shadow on the track. Let's get it. I'm a rock star type nigga, fucks bad bitches. See me in the drop cause I stay.
Yo, 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 yo. All right, just trying to. This is M.A.S Media with your boys here. This is Big Mike.
And it's A-Dub, double A Hef in the building. Holla! I'm joking.
All right, let's try it again. So, welcome back, y'all. This is this week's episode, where we are tackling masculinity. All right. So as we all know, there has been a sort of a I would want to. This may seem a little abrupt, but I think I find there's sort of an attack on the male dichotomy in this day and age, and I wanted to kind of approach this with my co-host to sort of figure out where this whole conception of toxic masculinity came from, right? Because this is something that has been trickling through the airwaves and a lot of feminist circles, utilized to create a lot of damning rhetoric towards male species, in the way that we are sort of bred and groomed in this sort of society that we live in today, in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that has always sort of driven me afar, because it's essentially like I feel like these points were put into place for a reason, and sort of this is just the nature of all things, and to move away so fast and so abruptly from that nature simply because a group of people, a small group of people compared to the landscape of the human population, finds it to be disruptive. It's just something that I simply can't co-sign and move on to. So I definitely wanted to first with my co-host. So Aaron, I posed the question to you. What would you say masculinity?
Masculinity, what it means to me in a nutshell would be the masculine principle, like the male principle.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm going to use the Bible. I'm going to use the Bible as a reference, and I'm sure the Muslim demographic out there, they could use the Quran, and the Jews, they could use the Torah or the Talmud or whatever they want to use. Anyway, I'm saying that to say this. I'm backing it on something substantial, whether you believe in religion or not. So there's roles explicitly laid out in all those three holy books that I just brought up. And not even just limited to that. If you want to go back to ancient, Greek, Roman, Kemetic history,
Mm-hmm.
with their gods and deities, they all had roles,
Right.
And they had father gods and they had mother goddesses. And there was just that dynamic that was between the two that was never really broached. They just stayed in their lane for the most part. And I say that to say masculinity means to me you're the role of being the man, which is inherently you should be the leader of your household. Now, not all men are natural born leaders. Yes, that's true. But you should still be leading your household, and you should have those quote unquote manly qualities about you. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And I guess if a feminist were to answer that question, she might say something like, "Oh, be very loud and obnoxious and have to have his way or the highway," kind of stuff like that. And to those people, I'll say, no, not quite. As when I go out, when I'm anywhere, even with my wife, it's my way or the highway. I don't live my life like that. Are there people out there that do that? I'm sure there freaking are, but that's not me, and that's not the majority of men. Most, right-minded men don't live their life or conduct themselves like that. What they do is they speak from their perspective on the topic to their wife or significant other, and then if she comes back with something substantive, then they will go and try to figure out a middle ground.
Mhm.
But and this is what happens a lot. These feminist groups, and I put that in quotations, they try to attack us with no substance,
Right.
and then I think because of that, and we kind of dismiss them, they come back at us with, "Oh, you're just toxically masculine, and you're like a brute, and you don't understand our feelings, and yada yada yada."
I guess I think I'm understanding that latter point, and I take it to say that that there's sort of that you're saying there's somewhat of an agenda that has been perpetuated by the part of these groups to sort of bind that energy, right, from a true male perspective into a controllable force that they can then utilize um, to sort of formulate what their needs and wants are. Is that where am I hearing
Hmm.
that correctly?
Yeah, for the most part, that's a pretty straightforward way of saying what I just said. Yep,
Okay.
that's what it seems like. At least I'm not going to sit here and say that that's what's going
Right.
on. That's how it appears to me.
And I mean I would definitely agree with that notion. I mean I think that's exactly what's happening. I know we don't want to speculate or to sort of throw kind of throw shots in the dark, but essentially if you look at the evidence that can probably before I dive deep into that battle, what I first want to address is what masculinity means to me, and I guess as simply as I can put it is it's a air of confidence, right, in knowing your role as the male, right, and I think as Aaron mentioned, those male principles that have sort of been embodied on us through the tales of time in human history, throughout human history, I should say, and it's where you are able to look at your female counterpart and be able to provide um, that sort of energy that allows them to know that when all else fails, you are and will forever be the constant, right? There will be no falter. There will be
Hmm.
no overly emotional sort of that puts you in a position or your family in a position where they are left to be exposed and downright unconfident in your abilities to lead as the male or general in your family, right? Doesn't mean that
Hmm.
you are the omega, the alpha, and all of that, to comprise. No, and I think that has been lost on these feminist groups is that they, because of the fact that they have met so many men, quote unquote, that have, and we've talked about this again at nauseum, that have portrayed themselves as male, I mean, as men when they are in all actuality boys. They utilize those people as the metric by which to gauge what a man should be like. I'm sorry, what a man
Hmm.
looks like in the 21st century. And then to that I say you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're essentially um, you're going to prove our latter points that we make simply because you, instead of looking at the full picture and looking at those men and that handle themselves as such, to pay attention to people that simply materialistically are fulfilling those roles as the quote unquote male in their respective partnerships. You're still missing. There's more that goes into it than simply can you provide, right? Right, and I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
something that
Oh
most
yeah.
men put a lot of value on, which is again another point that I definitely want to touch on later on in this podcast episode. But I think that's something that you know.
Yeah, but to kind of add on to that part that you just brought up about the providing part, and a lot of men out there think that, oh well, I got this job, and now I can take care, and then what happens? They get cheated on or they get left, and you know why? Because like Mike just said, it's not just about can you provide. First and foremost, a bitch will cheat on you. Excuse my language, but she'll
Mhm.
cheat on you, right? For a dude that
Right.
ain't got nothing. He wear the same jeans like
Yeah.
3 times out the week with the same pair of J's on that he tries so hard to keep clean. You know what I'm saying? And a cracked cell phone with the screen.
I can,
You know what I'm saying? So, like, she would cheat on you with that dude. And it's not because he can out provide you. It's way more than that. But one thing that I will say that it definitely is outside of providing is that if you can't teach your woman anything, like i.e. you don't know nothing, then it's not gonna work. You have to be able to teach your woman something, and then by extension she can teach the children. You know, because that's her main goal. You know, that's literally, she was built for that.
I love it.
So I know a lot of people are gonna probably try to take that the wrong way and try to call me a misogynist and make me out to be something that I'm not, but that's not it at all. That's anatomy.
Well, no, but
You know, that's
But that's
the
what I'm.
human
But that's
anatomy.
that goes into this. I know we talk about emotional thinking and things of that nature when it comes to discerning conversations or making analyses on sort of the sociological hemisphere that we exist in. But when you look at that statement that my co-host Aaron has has expressed, that is essentially you have to have um, a sense of concrete knowledge, right, that you can push forward. I'm not talking about things that are, essentially, that are without value, right? Where you're just like, oh, I can, talking about how you can fix a sink, or talking about there has to be a sense of intelligence, right? And I'm not saying you need to be the smartest cookie in the book, right? But at the same token, if your woman, looks at you and feels like she cannot be, um, not sort of upgraded by you, but or sort of be elevated, right? And she has no place where
Hmm.
to sort of see um, any sort of success or anything that by which to be by your side, then you're essentially setting yourself up for another man with more of a rambunctious spirit and more, um, I don't want to say, bring up the word alpha, right? Because I think that's something that, should be felt, not expressed. I've always felt like that, but essentially that
Hmm.
is the feeling that a woman will get, um, and they could sniff it from a mile away, right? So this is why when men,
Hmm.
you guys feel as though like, oh, I do all these great things, as Mary mentioned, I provide, I got a great job, I'm making six figures, I'm doing all this, but at the same time, I'm not able to bag the girls that I want. Well, it's because you have to look at the nature of the conversations that you're having, right? Do you exude
Hmm.
the qualities of a finite male to match up with that figure, that dollar figure that you're bringing in? Because I guarantee you, a woman will again
Hmm.
sniff that. If there's any skill that a woman has, is she is able to sniff out what is like who's faking and who's not to a certain degree.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, man. Um, it's it is tricky, fellas, because I know there's a lot of you. Well, there are a lot of you out there that still, have your woes when it comes to the whole dating scene
Right.
and stuff like that. But remain diligent and remain true to yourself. To thy own self, be true. And then you'll be fine. You'll be able to separate
Yeah.
who's worth your time and who's not. And if they're coming at you with anything like what we're talking about in this episode, like trying to challenge your masculinity or challenge you, I mean, not look, I'm not saying not challenge you at all, because yes, your woman should be able to push, and then you should have the answers and push back. That's what I'm talking
Yes.
about when I say teach. You should, when she comes, you have to be able to, like, boom, boom, boom. No, this is why,
Be
and this is
concrete.
how we go. The other day, my wife said something about, it was one of my friends. I'm not sure if it was a mutual friend of ours, Mike, but it was one of my friends. And she said something, and it was definitely like out of pocket. Now, I understand where she was coming from
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, and not as this
Right.
person's quote unquote friend. But obviously, I had to check it. I had to say, first and foremost, that is not your place. Oh, actually, it was her friend. It was her friend. She was talking about her friend's
Okay.
significant other, and then she came out crazy. And I said, no, 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 you don't do that. That's
Mm-hmm.
not your place. If you want to defend your friend, that's well within your means. Well within your right. Defend your friend, but you can't just take what your friend said and then just start talking crazy about this man. And that's ridiculous. And if someone were to do that to me, how the hell would you feel about that? You know what I mean? So no, you don't do that. I understand where you're coming from. I'm not trying to poo-poo it. I'm listening to you. You're having a conversation. You're venting to me. I'm here to listen, but I have to check you right there. That is unacceptable. And then she took it, and then that was it. But now she knows. She knows. You know, what if I don't check her on that, and then she's out and talking to that man like that, and then he freaking slap her side of the head. You know what I'm saying? Now because I didn't check that, now I got a problem.
Absolutely.
I got to kill this man.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I have to kill this man. Like, you put your hands on my wife, regardless of whether she was wrong or not. You know what I'm saying? If that's my brother, I could talk to my brother and like, yo, look, man, what are you doing? You stupid. You have to know better than this. But my wife, that's my wife? No. Hell no. You got to die. Sorry. So, but yeah, that's why we have to be able to check that. And women look for that.
Yes.
Women want to be checked. Don't let them fool you, fellas. They want to be checked.
That's exactly where, when we talk about control, like to that extent, right, or sort of be concrete, it's that, we see a lot of times, a lot of men, especially in the 21st century, and this is going to go back into the next, the question that I want to pose to the group in regards to why women feel it's necessary to be able to tell men how to be men, right? And you see it so much in the dating life. They're like, oh, I want a man that's a man that's about this, and a man that's this, and a man that does this, and a man that acts like this and acts like this, and I'm like, you don't even have a man in your life. Like, you live in a single mother. You live in a single mother household, and you're over here trying to, and I'm not saying this is like all be out, the ones that make these sorts of comments, but essentially in this day and age, the man, quote unquote, that's supposed to be in your life isn't even a constant. So you're then gonna come on the social media airwaves and vent to the masses about what you think a man is supposed to be, and essentially you have no idea, right? Outside of what TV and all these different venues tell you what a man, these magazines and all these media outlets tell you a man is supposed to do for you, and you have not the slightest idea. And when you actually come across a real man, right, who does what he's supposed to do, you leave him for a boy who comes across as a man, right? And just because he's flashy, he does all these other things. So I just it boggles my mind. That's something I kind of want to broach, next, is sort of, is that problematic, so to speak, for women to run down
Um, I'm going to answer that with yes and no, because it is, or it could be, if certain men allow it. If you allow that shit, then yeah. But it's not problematic for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't allow that. I don't go back and forth with random women. Right. I do not. Because look, if I'm not getting no vajayjay out of you, then what the fuck am I going back and forth with you for? If you got questions or you got differences of opinion with me, first and foremost, why are you going back and forth with me? Where is your man? How about you talk to him about that? Wait, do you have a man? You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't, maybe that's why you don't have a man. Because you're going back and forth with me. You know what I'm saying? Like get your shit together. Stop, get off the computer. Stop going back and forth with me about some shit that you don't really know nothing about. Trying to gloss over the fact that you don't have a man. And am I trying to put down women, single women? No, I'm not. I know it might sound pretty brash the way I just delivered it, but I'm not. Honestly, I want everyone to be happy and find that special someone. But I do see this a lot. And if you are a proponent of this and you're doing that, then stop that shit. There's no reason to be going back and forth. So when women try to go back and forth with me, especially random women, I'm not talking about family members. I'm not talking about my wife. I'm talking about randos on Facebook or Instagram that try to get all up in the comments on some just random ass shit. No, I'll give you one response, and then if you want to keep on going, have a nice day. You can go talk to your man. It's not my job to teach you. I have a wife. You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to lead this household and help teach her and us on how to be better. That's not, unless you are coming on as my second wife, then no. I mean, that's good. Then no.
Is she awake?
No, we doing that. Oh, Yeah, she will. No, but I will say this though too, and for everyone out there, men and female, this is probably going to be some great advice, the best advice that you're going to hear this year so far. All right, look, and the ancients said this. I'm not taking credit for this. The ancients said this. Now we have two eyes, right? The right eye and the left eye. The right eye is the eye of masculinity. The right eye is the eye of Ra. The right eye is the eye for the sun, man. Why the sun is analogous to man is because the sun is constant. Every day the sun comes up, whether it's cloudy or not. You may not feel it as strongly, but every day the sun comes and gives light to the darkness. Every day, like clockwork. You can bet on the sun to rise. And the left eye is for Diana. The left eye is for Luna, the moon. And that's for women because the moon has phases. And so do women. Women change just like the moon. So if I were to get upset with a woman that's upset about me during one of her phases, then I'm the fool. I know what to expect from the moon. Some days I'm not going to see the moon. Some days the moon's going to be full. Some days it's going to be a little slither of the moon. It's going to change. It's always going to change. It will forever continue to change. And that is how women are. And I didn't make that analogy, but it's something that is definitely true. So when women understand that and when men understand that, you know how to function around each other in a more harmonious way than what we do
I
now.
like that. I mean, I think that analogy speaks paramount as to where human society saw the value in and not sort of elevating and putting certain groups on a pedestal, but simply just calling out for what it is. I mean, we all know that women most times that they're not tend to be emotional creatures, and even the most outspoken and the most uh you know uh the most
The most
yeah,
Brittany
yes,
Griner
right.
type.
The most masculine sort of at all possible, women that are out there, will try to Lord Jesus, but um will try to act as though that they are not. But when you press them on certain topics, they will be the first ones to let you know that they do work off of state of emotion, and they do work off of fickle notions. And I think that's something that we do need to make sure we keep in mind. And I think that's why when we have these conversations, I definitely want to speak more on this ego battle, right? Where there's not even a need for it, right? But if for some reason or another, the
Mm.
feminists, right, and those that are the fake feminists, I call them, because essentially they don't want to be the non-shaving, armpit hair having, butch female feminists, but they essentially want to embody some of those notions and call themselves pseudo feminists, right? Or just I'm not a full on feminist, but at the same time, I'm just and to those ones I say, just stop it, right? Just cut the bullshit, right? Because when I press women on this, I think I've spoken on this on other podcast episodes, right? When we really play this ego thing to hand, and I'm like, okay, so let's let you have this sort on this equality notion, right? Or this that you guys want to continue to project, right? Like if it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and then there's a robber. I always like to use an analogy. If there was a robber that comes in the house, if we lived in a feminist world, you got to go ahead and get up, girl. It's your turn, right? If we live in a neighborhood
Hmm.
with some nefarious activities, well, I'm sorry. It looks like I got up last time, honey. It's time for you to go ahead and make do, and it's your turn. How many women are going to go ahead and go ahead and not look at their man in some disgust for them to simply ask that sort of question at that point in time? Like, come on now, like
Yeah.
it's a fallacy. And when I do pose that question to women, right, their first thing is like, okay, all right, well, all right, so we don't want everything to be equal. Oh, it's not, But then I say to them always, like, so then what's the point of even asking for equality if you don't? Because you can't have equality where you want it. You have to ask for equality across the board on all metrics and all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
no, go ahead.
that's the problem though, Mike. And I believe I spoke about this on here, and I know I spoke about this on my YouTube channel. Like there is no
Yeah, we were talking about.
equality. Equality is Yeah, it's like race. It's
Right.
made up. There's no such thing as equal. So when they try to be, first of all, men and women are not
Right.
equal. So, but like you said though, they do try to pull that game with that selective. That's they want to choose, when and where they want quote unquote equality. Like, oh, we still want the door to be held for us, but we'll go half on the bill. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or like stuff like that. We still want to feel protected by you. And like, no, but that's how everyone knows that it's some bullshit. It's a sham. Sorry, I'm just gonna call it out what it is. This whole feminist movement, the whole attack on masculinity, it's all a bunch of bullshit. Mainly started by a bunch of ugly chicks or quote unquote lesbians, and I'm just gonna call it like it is. Okay, ugly chicks that can't get a man, and then because they can't get a man, they turn
Ooh.
lesbian, and all of a sudden now empowered to be woman. No, you're not. Because you are kind of like the black people out here. You're looking for that hug from the quote unquote other side. Like the black people, they want the hug from the white man. They're looking for the approval of the white man. And you don't need the approval, sister. You may not be beautiful in everyone's eyes, but you're beautiful to somebody. So just like I just said before, stay true to your motherfucking self. Focus on what you got to focus on. Know your role. Stay in that lane, and you'll find somebody that'll love you. And you know what? Don't be ashamed if the man already has a woman and he wants to take you on as a second wife. Because I firmly believe, there's a lot of people out there that are single and freaking how you say it, like distraught and sad as hell because they can't be with somebody because he already got a man and he chose her over me. But you know what? Y'all both knew he was fucking both of y'all, so why not just make the shit work? You know what I'm saying? You love him, he love him, and if try to make it work, you might be happier doing that than freaking being miserable and trying to take it out on the next
You
guy.
know what?
Sorry,
No,
food for thought.
and you know what? I think that, I mean, that's definitely going to be. I know we've had a marriage podcast episode before, but that, obviously is a hot burning one, when it comes to monogamy and whatnot. But I think it tails into the point that we're speaking on at this point in this episode is this ego, right? It's those women that essentially do morph into like a, as if they're like a Power Ranger that just go from they play this notion. Oh yes, I wanted to be a man my whole life, or I've never felt like a woman. And I'm most times other than not, because I won't say all, right? Most times other than not, they were they were not getting any sort of attention from the male species, right? And it's not because they weren't getting it from you know um, any man at all, right? They probably, there was probably a guy in the science class or in the AE class that was that had their attention, but they wanted the jock, right? They wanted the pretty boys. They wanted all these different guys, right? To ponder and to give them the love and the adoration that they so wanted, right? But as soon as they don't get their ego stroked, then they simply and they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
confidence in themselves to express and to go about journeying for those types of men, then they simply just curtail it and take. I feel like it can be in a lot of cases the coward's way out, and which is why you see a lot of times there's the bisexual movement, quote unquote. It's something that I for one have I wrestle with, because I feel like a lot of them are just because for women obviously it's a lot easier to play that card than it is for men. So I feel like when women do play it, it's
Oh
because
yeah.
again they are, in a lot of cases, they are just biding their time, right, until the right dude with male energy that does it everything that they need him to comes along and whisks them off their feet, leaving a lot of people in the LGBTQ community, outcasting bisexuals. This is a reason why they do not give them a lot of credit, for their denomination, right? And so this is
Mm-hmm.
something that has always bothered me about you know these movements, right? These feminist movements, is that I just feel like it's a ton of ego. If we could just remove this notion that oh, I have to have some power in this game, right? Men have all the power, right? They have all the reach. If we could just remove this incessant need to create a battle where not need be, we're fighting over the wrong things. Like I just don't. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like these conversations are extremely unproductive. And when we're sitting here bringing up, and this is going to go into this whole toxic masculinity notion. When we're bringing up things like this that have been, it's sort of. I think Aaron, you spoke about this in our earlier podcast episodes about people that are simply just trying to uproot the system without trying to influx the system with something stable worthy, right? And they're just essentially trying to be
Mm-hmm.
modicum of chaos we realize, right? And that is something that I feel like when we bring up this whole toxic masculinity, it's like, okay, so you don't want men to be like this. What is the alternative? Because the alternative is going to have a ton of men running in a different direction that in a way that does not look like a man, right?
Yeah, but that goes back to the point, and that's why women don't lead societies, and they haven't built any civilization in human history. Because, like I just said, they're like the freaking moon. If you're gonna freaking try to make your or build your life around the goddamn moon, you know what I'm saying? Then you know what? You're never gonna have crops, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you gonna have crops going according to the moon? How are you gonna have any subsistence? How are you gonna have any? Look, the calendar goes off of the sun, not the moon. You know, so you can't listen to a woman try to tell you, you know, like no. All she wants is to be heard. That's it. That's it. They're not to be, you know, out here like, you know, dictating to us like, oh well, we think that. Well, sorry, but no, we got this far where y'all, you know, be in your lane. So how about you just get back in your lane, and we'll keep this ship moving. But you know what's funny? Like, actually funny. It's kind of crazy when I think about it, because I was reading a book by the author Dr. Claude Anderson. One of his books, I forget the name of it. But you guys can look it up. He's really like he's a great author. Has many books on about economics and the strife of black people and our lack of a sound economic system. But anyway, he was talking about how when the black people, the slaves were freed, that a lot of immigrants were still coming over to this country, being subsidized to come over, being given plots of land, and since they were filing under these minority group clauses that were added to the Constitution, like the 14th, 15th Amendment, like they were taking advantage of these amendments that were put in place for quote unquote freed slaves, but the quote unquote minority groups were taking advantage of it. Now, fast forward a couple years, women tried to get in on that too and try to claim that they were a minority group. But this is the toxic masculinity is a whole bunch of nonsense. But toxic femininity, that is real. For women to try to make the case that they are a minority group when literally we only have men and women on the fucking planet. You know what I'm saying?
It's a one-to-one. I actually checked the world pot. It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, and they tried to claim that and make a case for being minorities, but then you know that got knocked down. But you know they were like, "Oh, well, you're not a minority, but you're a subordinate." And I'm like, okay, well, they still above quote unquote black men as far as I'm concerned. So why the hell should I give a fuck? You know what I'm saying? So like, come on, man, come on, 1-to-1, and you trying to make the case for a minority group, please. And you want to sit here and say toxic masculinity. Hogwash.
And I think that's something that I've always wrestled. And I think I watched this. I think I mean, you've probably heard of Jordan Peterson before. I think we've talked about him before. He did a sort of a roundtable discussion. And for those that don't know Jordan Peterson, he's a well-acclaimed psych professor, and he speaks a lot on the sort of the um, these types of conversations, right? When it comes to toxic the women that sort of tried to broach men about toxic masculinity, or they try to. He's more of a proponent for male needs and things of that nature in our society. And it's kind of crazy to me that when people bring up the fact that there should be, male outlets for mental health reform and things of that nature, they poo-poo this. Like I actually watched um, a sort of a conversation breakdown on, I believe it was on Complex, where they had these groups come together, and one was a male rights group, right? A male rights group advocate, and the first thing that when they asked the question about should there be such thing as a male rights groups activist, obviously he came to the forefront on the yes side. The women that came were obviously on the other side, that they were feminists, and they tried to put him in a they tried to make the notion that it's like a woe is me type thing, right? That as if to say that men having a rights group, right? And when he broke it down for them, talking about the fact that there is a disproportionate amount of men that sit on death row as opposed to women, right? For something for comparable crimes. right? That rate is exuberantly
Yeah.
high, right? And then also the fact that there's a disproportionate amount of men that commit suicide, right? There's a lot of women that ponder suicide, but there's a more telling number of men who actually commit the action, right? And this is something that men's rights activists, they speak on, right? These women have the audacity to talk
Hmm.
about, oh well, it just seems to me that it just seems like it's just a counter component to counteract women's rights activist groups. And I'm just like, how vain can you possibly be? So just everything needs to be everything needs to be about and your issues. There's just no place in the world for males to have remotely any problems, which is why men stress out so fucking much. Because when they do bring out their problems, they get
Hmm.
shot the fuck down and they get told that they need to stop bitching and they need to be a man. But then when you go ahead
Yeah.
and do that, it's toxic masculinity. How do we win? How do we
Hmm.
win? If this is a game then that you guys want to continue to play, where is the end all? Just with men just jumping off a cliff and then just giving it all up? Like I don't understand what they want as an end goal. They just again this notion of chaos that essentially I feel like a lot of these women groups are looking for.
Well, that's what women, and again, this is going to sound crazy, but it's not. Women are agents of chaos
Yeah,
for the most part. 99.9% of women are agents of chaos, and they will try to shake shit up. They'll try to shake up your relationship, whether you're in it
right.
with her or not. That's what they'll try to do. They'll try to bring discord. Monotony is not a woman's friend. Being idle is not akin to women. It's just the reality of it. They don't like that. That's mainly when a woman will step out. Women step out on men through to boredom and or jealousy. And that's just for the most part pretty much it. If she's bored with you because you provide and you're not providing nothing else, then she's gonna step out on you, bro.
Yeah.
Real simple. you know. Um, or she's jealous of another woman, then she'll try to sleep with that woman's man. It's real basic. So I don't really anymore. Obviously, I don't really lose any sleep over this because, like I said, I move how the hell I move, and I know that how we move as men is supposed to dictate how women move. It's not the other way around. Period. Point blank. That might sound misogynistic, whatever the hell. Yada yada yada. Go fuck yourself. I don't care.
No, no,
Kick
I think
rocks.
you know what I think, and then I think we've spoken about this before about that comment specifically, and I've had people who've come in, they're like, oh, your co-host, for him to say, and I'm like, well, and I want to repeat myself, right? Because I think this is something that normally, obviously, there are stances that Aaron takes, that I sometimes look at, I'm like, okay, it's a little strong on the nose. But I think what people fail to do, right, and I think this goes into the whole fact that about people being emotional, right, is that they're not able to tailor perspectives to someone's notions, right? They automatically hear agents of chaos, and instead of listening to the make, they hear those three words and they automatically go, "Oh God, oh here we go, about some woman hating going on, and some uh, he's been abused in his life, and he's all now, like
Oh
all
yeah,
these
right.
different notions start coming down the wazoo, and it's like, well, let's think about this. When we give you guys credit for being calculating, right, when it comes into the emotional atmosphere of the sociological hemisphere that we live in, right, you guys take that and you go, oh yeah, no, absolutely, we can be calculating. We play games, quote unquote, right, to be able to get what we want out of a man, right? But when you admit these things,
Hmm.
then when someone is an agent of, that's essentially what it is, right? It's just he's giving a name to that action, right? And I think that's something that women, when we speak on these things, it's not from a place of, oh, we hate women, it's like, oh, and then we have to make those, or we have met women in our family, like, no, we're not one of those racist people that are like, oh, I have a black friend, I don't we don't have to subject ourselves to that melancholy. Like, what we're trying to do is simply help you guys understand where our perspective comes from when it comes to you guys and where you guys stand in this battle that you guys want to continue to project on us. right? As if you stand to win something out. So when Aaron brings up Agent of Chaos, I hope if you are truly trying to understand, because I feel like not a lot of you are, or simply just listening without a purpose, right? And if you're just listening to our podcast and essentially just you know just for the sake of listening, that's great and all. But I would hope that you're able to take from what we say and not automatically generate us into impossible buckets, without actually knowing where the hell we're coming from. So simply calling a person of Agent of Chaos is not to say that they are a problematic figure, because there are places for a little bit of chaos is needed. But if you can put something on the
Oh yes.
nose on the button, then what is the point of having an honest conversation?
Yeah. Let me ask
Yep.
you a question, Mike. Out of all the women that you speak to in life, and also like regarding the
Yep.
podcast, right? How many of them would consider themselves to be God fearing, whether it's Muslim, Jew, or Christian or Catholic, whatever?
I would say most, to some degree.
Yes. And I would assume most, and I'm sure most logical thinking people would assume most, because most people adhere to some kind of some form of belief system this day and age, whether they're super
Mm-hmm.
active in it or not. And that's why in the beginning I prefaced what I stated by using the Bible as my backdrop, and I'm going to use the Bible again, because those same women that combat you on things that I say, and the same women that try to combat me for things that I
Mm-hmm.
say, I always find it to be very funny, because they'll be the first ones that go, "Oh, yep, on church Sunday pictures and stuff like that." But then it's like, look. I read the Bible when I was like 13, maybe. Because I got like really like big into the Bible. Like Donnie McClurkin came out with that song. We fall down, but we. Yeah, nah, him. He came out. Kirk Franklin had some hits, and the other dude, Fred Hammond, had some hits. Man, I feel like they were just coming out back to back to back. Anyway, I digress. So the music, obviously, I'm a musician. So the music was what was really getting me into the church. And then I had this real good pastor right before we went to Agape. He was in Irvington. He's dead now. He died on some mysterious way. It was kind of weird, actually. But yeah, his name was Ron Christian of the Christian Love Baptist Church in Irvington. And he was a real cool dude, man. And I was like, I'm into this. And I was very close to joining that church. But I say all that to say, I read the Bible. And I was young. But, when you're young, you remember some shit. It doesn't all make sense to you. But as you grow and you remember, it's like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. But in the Bible, it says very clearly, wives, submit to your husband as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. And I'll never forget that verse, because it's clarity. Oftentimes in the Bible, it's like, the runaround. You get the ring around. You know what I'm saying? It's like cryptic. Very, very seldom do you get just plain text like that. And it doesn't get much plainer than that. Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, because he is the head, just like the Christ is the head of the church. It's super simple. But all these women out here that will claim to be Christian, claim it, they'll be out here trying to like go back and forth with random men and their own man. And it's because the attack on masculinity is real. There's an attack on it. And we already had casualties to the point where that it is acceptable now, and things like that shouldn't be acceptable. Like why are you going back and forth on social media with a random dude? Especially if you have a man, if you have a husband. What if I found out my wife was going back and forth with some random ass dude about some random ass conversation on social media? We're gonna have some words. You know what I'm saying? Like
No,
like we're definitely gonna
I think,
have.
and I want to ask you a question then, because I feel like that question you asked about women that lean on a sort of way religious, in a religious sense, as far as where they sort of place their ideologies of worship. Um, it's something that because I feel like a lot of people do the morphing thing, right? Because also it's when it comes to religion, I feel like they do a lot of this dancing, right? Where it's like they pick and choose, right? When they want to be religious and when they want to kind of say, "Oh, well, I haven't been to church in years. It's really not been, I
Mhm.
just, I pray, but like I'm not, I believe in a higher sense, right?" And it's like this, but then sometimes they'll just randomly be like, "Okay, well, I got to go to church. I should go to church one of these days." And I'm just like, well, it's like again, it's a very confusing dance. So I asked that to say this, right? For those people, right, that will take that statement that you made, right, and their first thing of like, okay, I get all that, but at the same time, why I can't, I'm not gonna just submit to any man, right? Sorry, but when I do choose to submit to a man, it's just like, I get, ramrod, right? Well, why should I, follow this notion from the Bible, right? If men are not gonna be there
Well,
on their end, what do you say to
well, that's a good. First, I say that's a great question. That is a great question, and I'm sure that I can already hear women asking that question right now. So that's how I know it's a great question.
that has been, I have heard it. Rebuttals are male centric conversation.
So my answer to that is the Bible says wives. Now, first and foremost, you have to be a wife. That's who he's talking to. So as a wife, you should submit to your husband. And now, if you're not a wife, does that mean that you shouldn't submit to men? No, because if you're not a wife, you look. Well, a lot of women don't understand this. A couple months ago, I was at my friend Gio's house with his wife, and it was me and my wife. And I think I said it's on an episode before. Long story short, I was explaining to these two women, these two wives, that they're like our property, and they were so taken aback by that, like, oh my god, the toxic masculinity. Here we go, like, oh my god. My name John Coffee Boss. I'm sorry. I ain't mean to upset you. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait, what?
I remember
So I'm
and someone got extremely upset at the remark. There might have been drinks.
Oh yes, you were.
There might have been some drinks that had heavily flowed at that point.
Yes, but it was very simple what I was saying. Like, your last name is mine. And prior to that, it was that of your father. So that means the ownership was transferred over. That's what it is. Symbolic of that. That's what it is. Because the men are the head. Now, if you're not a wife, you can't submit to your husband because you're not a wife, you don't have a husband. But you have a father who's technically your quote unquote owner. Now, I know, like, as I'm saying it, it sounds kind of like crazy, especially in this day and age. But no, your father is your,
right? Because I'm sure they're gonna come straight
Yeah.
at that remark.
Oh, well, I got something for them too. So anyway, if you have a father and he's present, he's your overseer. And not for nothing, this is the last part of this point. The father is supposed to choose the husband for you. Women are not supposed to choose who they're supposed to be with because they'll never choose the right person. And isn't that evidenced by today? We can just look around at the divorce rate, all the unhappy women. Sorry, not sorry. You cannot choose. You will not make the right choice.
The feminine energy in me tonight.
Yo, I'm coming, yo. Yeah, I'm coming tonight, man. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I'm not a rapper though. You know what I'm saying?
We might get flagged.
Oh yeah, we might get canceled after this one, Mike. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, yo. Yo, if this our last episode, yo, I'm going out on a bang. You know what I'm saying?
So, let it all out, bro. Let it all out. Shit,
No, but for real. So it all boils down to if you don't have a husband, that you're not a wife, so they weren't talking to you. And then if you're not a wife, then that means your father still has ownership of you, and he should be the one choosing the man for you. And if he chooses the man for you, it should be in your best interest. And at the very end, in this day and age, if you went through all that and that guy is an abusive piece of shit, then okay, then yes, get the fuck out of there. No one's telling you to stick around. You know what I'm saying? But like that's the order. Everything that I'm going to say, I have an order. I have a backing for it. I'm not just speaking out of my fucking ass. I have a backing. So when you ask me questions, I have my moral compass, number one, and I have the backing of the book, which most people claim they subscribe to. And I'm not so freaking like, like, oh my God, the Bible, you know what I'm saying? Like, I gotta, go to Bible study every Wednesday, and the Sabbath is on Saturday, not Sunday, because that's the real day of the Sabbath. I know that, but no, I don't do that. I don't have to go to church to know the
Right.
book. You know what I'm saying? I find peace from within. I find validity from within. That's why there's nothing that any of these groups can say to me that's gonna hurt me. You know what I'm saying? That's why y'all popping freaking antidepressant pills, drinking glasses of wine, touching yourself because you're damn single and can't find a man.
Oh my Jesus! No, hey, Jesus of Nazareth. Oh man, oh, boy, we only had a live chat right now. That shit would probably be going crazy.
Yo, if we had a
Oh
live
my
chat,
Lord, we might have to start making these types of comments like Instagram live. But yeah,
oh, I was thinking about that. Yo, we can do that. We can do that because we have the Instagram page for the podcast, and I have my own Instagram page. So you can start the live on the podcast, and I can join, so then we can both see our faces, and everyone can see our faces, and they could join the chat.
Okay, and then maybe we can just send out a notice. All right, look at y'all, guys. We plan next moves during episodes, guys. So if you want to check out what our next move will be, most likely you will hear it in an episode. So look out for that. For that coming soon, and then we'll be able to take those and move those to the YouTube page. Which yes, by all means, before we continue on, do want to make sure we shout it out. We're at 2 subscribers, y'all, and I'm sure there's 3 members of M.A.S Media. So so guys, please, by all means, like, comment, subscribe. We have our season 1 and season 2 episodes on there at this moment. We will get some visuals for y'all, so that way you guys can tune in and see our handsome faces. But back to this point, and I think this is something that when you make these comments, right, and their first thing will be they want to pigeonhole it, right? That would be their first notion. Oh, well, so you're just supposed to stay with the guy, regardless, right? Just regardless of you're supposed to deal with all his negative energy, whether it be physical nightmare and torture and all that. And it's just like how simplistic is your mindset, right? So does everything have to be mutually exclusive, right? You can't. We're not saying we would never. And Aaron has made this very clear, right? In his soliloquy, he mentions that you should definitely run if a guy is putting his hands on you and treating you in a nefarious and insidious way. But for some reason or another, when we speak on these topics, right? People always want to go to, oh, so you're just supposed to be unhappy and you're supposed to just deal with all the abuse and all this other stuff regardless, right? That's what our parents used to, our grandparents, and that's the reason why they stay together, because they just dealt with the abuse the whole time. I'm just like, first of all, you're extremely disrespectful, right?
Yeah, right.
Those people were the ones that essentially brought you here, right, to your sort of to be to be even able to have such a privileged sort of remark to even fix and come out your mouth, right? And then this for 2, it's like you do realize that there are a ton of women that chose to up and leave, right? And the ones that didn't, right? It's because their men morphed into men. I'm sorry, they morphed from boys to men, right? Because we do not advocate for any of that nonsense as a group of people that truly act as though they're men, because men do not treat their women, their queens, and their partners in such a fashion, right? So I really want y'all to be very careful about how you disintegrate and take our information, because I feel as though there's a lot of in one ear and out the other when it comes to us providing you guys this breadth of knowledge, right, for your knowledge caps. That I just don't want you guys to keep on missing the mark because you want to continue to let 17 magazine and and US Weekly and all these different media outlets continue to warp your sense of what a man is, or a partner is supposed to exude on a day by day basis. I feel like there's a lot of unrealistic notions and requirements that are being put on the forefront. And as Aaron mentioned, there's not a lot of stability in people's moral compasses to begin with. There's a lot of placating, right? A lot of people will say that they are this, they will say that they're God fearing, but then when Sundays come around, they can't be bothered to even get on their knees at home and pray. I'm not even talking about go to a church. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to be, you don't have to be a church goer to be holy. But for them to even take a second to connect with the quote unquote, the fashion that they fixate themselves on, it's just too much. They can't be bothered. So it's very, it's very interesting to me, these notions that people create, and these sort of realities that they warp in their own minds around, how they move, and about who they date and who they interact with. It's just very funny.
Yeah, no, dude, like you said, like you greatly put, it's funny. It's almost laughable. You know, yeah, it's like you just kind of take a step back and you say, "Wow, like I said all of that, and that's what you take away from it." You know what I mean? It's like,
No,
what?
that's what always happens. Anytime,
Oh yeah,
and even when we break, we even take the time out of our days to comment on people that because you'll even broach people, right? Because as you mentioned, like, obviously, if I'm not, you make the notion, if I'm not your man, we don't need to go back and forth. But even you will take time out, right? Because obviously we want to connect with our viewers and understand where, and see what they think, right? When you do this, when we give a response back, their first thing is it's like they read the first couple of lines, or they see the hot button, hot takes in the thing. I mean, in the and they automatically just use that to comprise their response backs, and they're never in a way where it's like, are you really? I don't say never, but it's a lot of those times where those hot-headed individuals that comment back and forth, it's like it's like you're just summarizing, and you're not even summarizing, utilizing the right basic. So it's like, where are we going to go in this? If you're not going to read what I say, but I'm expected to read what you say, because if I misquote you, your first thing is going to be, well, that's not what I said, nor is that what I meant. And I'm like, well, so we're just going to keep doing this back and forth with each other, or we're just all just going to not pay attention to what we're saying. Is that how you conduct a conversation? I don't know. I mean, come back to the thing about masculinity. I mean, so masculinity. It's just, I feel like a lot of these conversations about toxic masculinity and the subjugation of the woman species to the man, this proposed notion that women have no higher place in our society, right? I feel like it's just all relative, and at the end of the day, it's just, again, it's unproductive, because for the men that know, there is an extremely important. I think, Aaron, you mentioned it on all occasions about where women, have a very fruitful responsibility in this sociological hemisphere, and for women to take that responsibility and make it so it's something to improve on when it comes to child rearing, and not even just child, but for the fact of raising or being an influential member to the children and the masses that are growing in these generations. I think that's just something. That's the reason why a lot of these kids are running around, acting the way that they do, right? Because there's not enough responsibility and not enough care in that response, in that role, for us to consider it to be something that's important. And kids will feed off of that, and they will conduct themselves accordingly based upon it.
yeah. Mike, is your Wi-Fi
No,
on?
it's not, but it's. I'm hearing that too on my end. There's like a little bit of like, yeah, it's
Choppy. It's choppy.
But let me see.
Yeah, but no, back to what you were saying. Yeah, the kids are definitely, they're taking that and running with it, and it's just like a trickle down effect. But we'll say this though, to be fair, like I said, there's only 99.9% of these women out here that are crazy as hell, but there are a few that I'm not spoken to, that reach out to me, and I don't consider a back and forth. They come with substantial questions, meaningful questions, and I answer it. And then we see eye to eye. We see it clearer. Does it mean that I was able to sway their opinion, or they were able to sway mine? No, not necessarily. But we were able to have a real conversation, and and now that I think about it, when the women that have been able to that I haven't able to go that far with, now that I think about it, they all have what I would consider to be stable homes, with a father involved. So is there a correlation there? I mean, I don't know, but I'm gonna say yeah. Just gonna come out and say it. Because then you know how to have a real conversation. You know how to interact with the not the opposite sex, because we're not opposites. Like I said, we complement. So you know how to have a conversation with the complementary piece. As not knowing how to have that conversation. You know, like, I don't know how to speak to a man because every time my mother ever spoke about men, it was, oh, fuck this nigga, this, that, and the third, and I'm a single, independent, yada, yada, all that nonsense. So then your daughter grows up not knowing how to talk to a goddamn man. There wasn't a man in the house for her to get practice with. And the brother, they treated like he was freaking, you know, like he was can't get right. He can't talk. They all gonna speak for him. And, you know what I'm saying? And fight all his battles and stuff like that. And, you know, the quote unquote black man in a very precarious situation. But I digress from that because that's a little bit off topic, and we can save that for another day. But so let's get back to the Jews. Now, you know, has there been a warping of what a man looks like in the 21st century, Mike? Like, for instance, you know, Harry Styles, he recently was on the cover of, I believe it was Vogue, wearing a dress. What are your thoughts on that?
I would have to preface my, you know, this is one of these sensitive topics that I think it comes to this thing is
Yeah, you're like in and out right now, Mike.
Hold on. It's like rubbing against something. All right, is it still doing it?
No, that sounds better.
So when it comes to the Harry Styles situation, what I would say is that there's just, I feel like we're going again in the wrong direction when it comes to these conversations. I don't think we need to continue to champion these individuals, right, for going so steadfast into these notions of like what it truly is. You can throw on a dress, right? It's just and bring it that way, right? And like and make a whole extremely suspect, right? Like I used to do this charity event when I was in college called Shoes. And for this event, we would have the males would put on heels to sort of and walk a mile in heels to be able to sort of give our support in women that are going through domestic violence and things of that nature. Because essentially, when you know the whole picture they try to draw is that, you know, when women are running away from these things, a lot of times they're wearing shoes or things of that nature, and they have to like walk out and like they've been bruised in their body and all these other things. And usually they have to walk out so far because they don't have a lot of, you know, they don't have their own car, they don't have their own transportation. So it's like we were trying to speak to those notions and be able to provide our support in that aspect. So when I would wear those heels, you know, I'd be like, you know, it's like it was a very specific point that I was trying to make with these points about, you know, that Harry Styles is trying to connect this vote. I think it's just, again, sending the wrong message so steadfastly for the upcoming generations, to the extent to where, you know, you see these kids walking around with black nail polish around on their fingers, you know.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know,
what the hell is that about?
just, you know, dressing in a way that's just this, and they try to compare it to the Prince age, right? And I'm just like, no, there's nothing manly about what you're doing at all. Prince didn't wear dresses, right? And if he put those boots, at the same token, I'm be damn sure when you meet a man that's met Prince, they will automatically tell you this man included male, right?
Yeah.
That's to where they were even, you know, comically they would be like, hey, you can't even look this man in the eyes. He would clap your cheek.
Yeah.
You don't get that. You don't get that energy from any of these people that are doing any of this nonsense. Damn sure you're not getting that Harry Styles.
Yeah, no,
shit is just weird and off-putting.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm definitely gonna get on that. But you were breaking up again still. I'm not sure if it's you know, technical difficulties over there.
It might just be technical. What we can do is we're gonna take a quick break and then we're gonna come back.
Yo.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's your boy A Dub, double A Hef in the building.
All right, all right. Welcome back, y'all. We're for the latter part of this episode. Can you hear me better now? We just had some technical difficulties on my end. Hopefully, I'm coming in better now.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so you were speaking on the Harry Styles situation. So by all means.
Oh yes, yes. So the I, how I found out about the Harry Styles situation was I was at work and there's a magazine rack literally right next to the register, and a woman called in maybe 20 minutes prior. She says, "Oh, you guys sell Vogue magazine?"
Oh my god.
Well, let me look. So I look, and oh, right here where I'm standing is Vogue magazine. So she's like, "Oh, is Harry Styles on the cover?" And I'm like, well, "What?" Like, first of all, I barely know who the hell Harry Styles is, and I'm a musician. You know what I'm saying? I barely know who the hell he is. So I'm like, I think that name sounds familiar, but I'm like, all right. So I look, and it says Harry Styles. I'm like, oh, sure, yeah. And she's like, oh, great, I'm coming right now. Click. 20 minutes later, this woman comes in, and she's like, oh, yeah, I called about the magazines, and I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, where is it? So it's right here. And she looks and said, oh my god, yeah, my daughter's gonna be so happy. And she literally bought every single one we had. And I was like, may I ask why? Like all the energy behind this? She
Right.
said, oh, because this is the first time a man is on the cover of Vogue, and my daughters are feminists. And I'm sitting. Once she said that, I was like, whoa, I'm thinking to myself like the Most High would try to test me with some shit like this. So, so I'm like, oh man, I got to tread lightly. I'm at work. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I asked some probing questions like, what do you mean by feminist? And then she's like, oh, they're part of like the movement and women's rights and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. But why is Harry Styles the first man to be on the cover of Vogue? And she said, I don't know, but he just is. And, he's wearing a dress. I didn't know up until this point that he was wearing a dress until she pointed it out. I just saw the name and I said, yeah, we got the magazine. You know what I'm saying? So when she said he's wearing a dress, I looked and I'm like, wow, he is wearing a dress. And then I said to myself, well, why do you think that the first man that they would have on this magazine would be in a dress? And I was like, maybe I'm going up too far on this. But she was a good sport about it. She was like, oh, because he's showing that just because you're a man doesn't mean that you can't wear a dress, something like that, which that's a whole bunch of bullshit. Number one, that I'm not with. But I respect her for answering the question and not being hypersensitive about it. So yeah, that's how I found out about it and how I feel about it. Look, I do know that there are some ancient cultures that wore things that will be akin to a dress. The Irish wear kilts, which are very much akin to dresses and things like that. But everything in its proper context, this day and age, when you put on a dress, I've never put on a dress, but I could only imagine if I were putting on a dress, the only thoughts that'd be going through my mind is like, what the fuck? Why am I doing this? This is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like a whole bunch of weird shit would be running through my mind. So there's no man out there that could put on a dress and tell me like nothing crossed your mind at all. There was no hesitancy whatsoever. And I don't care if you want to come out and say, oh, I'm a trans male, so I'm actually a female. No. The first time you put on a dress, there was some apprehension, I'm sure. So let's not play this game. So yeah, for Harry Styles to put on a dress, and then for Vogue for that to be their first male. Think about all the kings, all the princes, all the presidents, all the great dignitaries, socialites that have come and gone. And the first male you put on your magazine is a British dude in a dress. That tells me that you're trying to say something. You're trying to say something, and I don't like what you're trying to say. I have a child on the way, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a boy, and that's the type of shit that I don't need my son coming to me getting no fucking funky ideas. And people might say, oh, well, if, they don't have a choice on it if they're gay. Is gay. Look. Let me address the gay shit real fast.
Awesome.
They can find genes and people that could tell you, oh, you're going to be susceptible to this drug, or you could be an alcoholic because you have this DNA, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, or like your eye color and all this fucking crazy shit. They figured it all out, what's recessive, what's not, what the hell you're gonna have. And look at eugenicists. Eugenicists try to breed shit out of people. This is a science, but they've never found a motherfucking gay gene. So call me archaic, which I'm sure that's the only thing that you can try to discredit me with. But no. As far as I'm concerned, it is a choice, and I will give you some numbers to back it up. The majority of quote unquote homosexuals and transgenders, the majority, from the statistics on what's the name of that website? The one about health, I forget. It's something health.org. They've been molested at some point in their life. So there's a correlation.
Right.
The study was saying that there's a correlation between being sexually assaulted and or molested as a child. More than likely, these people turn into part of the LGBTQ sphere. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people in that community that don't like what I'm saying, and yada yada. If that's the case, come to me with your numbers and your studies, and we can have that conversation. It's not going to be a debate, but we could definitely have that conversation. But that's where I'm at on it. There's no gene. There's no gene. If there was a gene, like they find genes for every goddamn thing else, then all right, then I would have to concede to that.
Right.
But no. At this point in time, no, I do not. And at the end of the day, why the hell are you trying to force me to concede to your shit anyway, motherfucker? Look. If you can get married in this state, then be happy. Be happy. Be happy with that. Because you want more. Look, man, quote unquote black people have been here for hundreds of years. If you listen to the slave narrative, and we still aren't considered quote unquote equal. So what, you think you're just supposed to be treated equal above us? First and foremost, equality ain't real for the last time. Secondly, if you think y'all just gonna get your shit before we get it, if it was real, you got another fucking thing coming. Because if that was the case, I would be a staunch person out there saying, hell to the no, get the fuck behind me in line. Period. If it was real, but it's not real. But just if I want to entertain that silly shit, yeah, get the fuck behind me. And does that make me freaking? Oh, well, you're a bigot and all this other whatever? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It means like get your phony shit the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? You can't just cut the line. And that's what I was talking about with the 14th, 15th, and 16th Amendment, these quote-unquote minority groups, and that's why black people should stop calling themselves minority, because when you call yourself a minority, everybody out and their fucking mother want to say that they're a minority and try to use the same institutions that were put in place to help us, and they exploit it, and we don't know how to do it, and we don't. It's crazy, man.
No. I appreciate that. I appreciate those sentiments. And I think that's something the reason why I wrestle so much with this Harry Styles whole saga that went on, right? It was like a wind firestorm of, people from, many sides of the spectrum sort of coming out either for or against, the issuance of this. And my thing is that it again, right? If we were to play that game, right, that race game, right? If it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for people that look like us. You know what I'm saying? Like the simple privilege that young man has, right? Because if you ask if you ask the Jamie Foxxes, the Martin Lawrences, you ask a lot of these comedians who have donned dresses, right, and have played, I'm not saying played women characters, but essentially have obviously Martin played
Shanae.
Yeah, played Shanae and all that. A lot of them regret doing that shit.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Like if you listen to a lot of their conversations and the interviews that they do with these comedy media outlets, like Comedy Hype and whatnot, I'll watch them all the time on YouTube, right? They'll openly talk about how they either, completely regret taking on these roles, or how they basically got outcasted from Hollywood because they didn't want to take on these female roles and being put in a dress or put on makeup and putting on wigs and all this other stuff. So it's like, I feel like there's just the fact that he's able to just so openly and freely, go ahead and do something like, and I'm not saying we should want to, right? I just think it's just a matter of the optics that this shit pursues, right? So for the fact that he's just going ahead and going to do this, there's going to be kids of all denominations. I mean, so of all backgrounds, we're going to look at this and go, oh, oh, and they're gonna ask these questions, these nonsensical questions about whether or not it's okay for me to don a dress. And I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
what at what point does the need to be a man have to be assassinated? Why does this have to continually be? And this is why I talked about attack on masculinity. I used words like battle and things of that nature, because it's just like, these are non-important. What is me putting on a dress, right? Am I saying that, am I saying that I do not have enough masculinity to be able to put on a dress? I'm what I'm saying is that I'm comfortable enough in my masculinity to know that if I did see someone that was around me that was a male in a dress, I'm not gonna have a problem with him, right? I'm not gonna automatically just be like, oh, fucking weirdo, fuck out my face. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna be, I don't have to be expressive to that degree. But for me to have to express how manly I am by putting on something that's not essentially what men do,
Mm-hmm.
like what sense is it? How does that change how I go about my life? Is that gonna help me get a job? Is that gonna help me? Is that gonna help me find the career that I want? I mean, unless I'm trying to do drag for a living, like how in God's name is that gonna give me the end result to the success in my life that I so desperately would want and need? Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't get that. I don't get how those two equate to one another. So it always drives me insane when it's like these kind of notions keep on getting hammered by the people that we're speaking about in these feminist groups that continually go, oh well, why do you say that this is problematic? Well, well, we say it's problematic because you keep on taking the focus away from the things that matter most. Why the fuck do we need to keep on broaching? Why does it need to be a thing? Why can't we have figures? Why couldn't vote? There's a ton of handsome men that have donned the human history, right, in the time that Vogue has been established. Why the fuck does it need to be someone in a dress?
Exactly.
Why? And that meant that was such a powerful, statement you made earlier about, the fact that there've been so many intellectuals, so many different, socialites, things of that nature, people that have, donned the human, the human highlight reel. But yet, this is the guy, Harry Styles. This is
Yeah, in a dress.
this is the captain.
In a dress.
This is the champion. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't get it. I don't understand it, and I don't want to understand it. And the fact that I'm being forced to have to understand it and to make do with it, and to just simply go, yeah, this is how this is how the world should be, and this is little boys should just be able to play with dolls and die and put on heels and walk around freely, no purpose, right? Now, again, like obviously I spoke about the charity work that I did, but that was very specific. Like I'm not talking about wearing heels all day, every day, 24/7. Like I was just for like not even 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So for someone to go this extreme route to go ahead and try to provide some type of agenda that's gonna infiltrate and affect how young men or young boys grow to be men, right, and completely move them away from the fields that are absolutely necessary in this society. It's just like, wow, what the fuck is going on? Where are we going?
That's the question, and that is why, fellas, we have to put a strong foot down and not just put up with this shit,
Yeah.
because we don't know where it's going. And yeah, I think I know where it's going. They want to look. Now, a lot of people don't understand what communism is. They don't think that it's serious. If you bring up the word communism, they try to say, "Oh, what is this? 1960s?"
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. But communism, if you just look it up, there are communist nations out there, so the shit is still around. And if you know anything about communism, for instance, not for instance, for context, I've read the Communist Manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
I've read it twice, actually. I read it in college because I did go to school. I did not finish my degree, but I did go to school for political science,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to read the Communist Manifesto, and I read it again recently to refresh, And I just finished reading a book written by J. Edgar Hoover, and it was called Masters of the Sea, and it was pretty much chronicling communism and how to spot it, how to detect it, and what they try to do. So there's like these different movements and shit like that. These are all Marxist fucking movements. They're trying to break down our civilization, which is reliant, not reliant upon, but our civilization is built upon a foundation in religion, one of the three main monotheistic religions, and then by extension of that religion, the nuclear family with the man as the head.
Right.
So all these like proxy groups that you see trying to break that down, it's Marxist. They're not just going to come out and tell you, and the people that are in it might not even know that it's Marxist, but it's Marxist.
I think that's more.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's more so what it is. People, they don't even realize what they're preaching.
No, they don't. I see it all the time. People are like, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, and I'm at the. Oh, have you been to a protest? No, I don't go to a protest. Want to know why? Because I know what the fuck that's a Marxist fucking movement, motherfucker. And you know what? And not for nothing. Even if it wasn't, protests don't do nothing. And I think I said that on our second or third episode, Mike. I'm pretty like I feel like I keep just saying that I said things already. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, the protests don't get shit done. Besides waste fucking time, you look like a fucking whiny ass baby. You want to make some real change, gain some knowledge. The knowledge that's going to tell you what maybe I shouldn't be out here protesting for this fucking Marxist ass agenda because they don't care about the fucking patriarch, which is me because I'm a man. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a quote unquote black man protesting for BLM, then you're a fucking fool. Period. And if you feel some kind of way, fight me, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, come on, man. I'm getting tired of these dudes, man. I'm sure that our listeners, they could tell that I'm getting tired, man. The time, it's a new year.
I don't doubt.
I'm getting tired of all of this nonsense. I have zero patience. I got a baby on the way. Nah, man. Look, man, Mike and I, we're not getting left behind with this bullshit. You know what I'm saying? We elevating ourselves, and y'all can come with, or y'all can get left behind, man. But that's about it. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to keep playing these games with y'all.
Tell them. Yeah, this shit, it's getting enough. I mean, and I think that's kind of when we kind of, to wrap this up, I feel like in order to combat, because it's again, you see these words that we have to use, right? It's like, combat, battle, fucking attack, like all these agendas. It's like as if we're on a fucking battlefield about things that are have absolutely no relativity to what the hell is going on in our or no importance, need say, in our everyday lives. So in order for how I combat it, and I would hope people, and I'm sure Aaron, I know you've mentioned on numerous occasions how you plan to, especially with your the coming of your your baby in due time. It's just a matter of there has to be a, again, we spoke about this at the beginning of this podcast, when it comes to essentially putting that foot down in regards to being concrete of what it is to be a man. There is a reason why, and as Aaron mentioned, there has been a system in place for the last 15,000 years, spanning back to the Egyptian monarchies, and going even farther to the Sumerian, civilizations. There was a reason why our societies were built as such. There are things that are in time that are in our civilization that have need to be, maneuvered and need a quick adjustment based upon the moving landscape. But there are some certain things that just need to be paramount and ironclad in order to continue the system. Because again, if you're going to want us to deviate away from what we've known for tens of thousands of years, right, you better have the answers as to how we move forward. And if you're just going to keep on trying to throw monkey wrenches in what we know as common, then Lord have mercy, please, spare me, for the chaos that ensues. And you just trying to go, well, that's not what I was aiming for. I just wanted everybody to get along, and I wanted everybody to be, on the same page, and I just wanted everybody to be respected and loved, and all this nonsense, just these misguided notions of again, equality and all these other things that again do not even get you to where you want to be. I don't understand how we move forward in this society without men, women, and the like sitting down and being very, very careful and diligent about how we express what men and how women are supposed to interact and act throughout the course of their everyday lives. If we cannot continue to do this, and I'm going to be the main proponent in my life, because I wish to have children as well. in my coming future, that will be a basis that my son and my daughter even will know very well what it is and what it takes to be a man. Even if I'm not the most upstanding man that possibly can, they will know. So that way, if they even fix their lips, right, or fix themselves to get into any sort of dynamic, they will know what it is and know what that energy pursues from not the lack of trying, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
only way we can move forward. There has to be an honest conversation about what it takes, because there's a lot of funniness that's getting right now, and it's getting us to a very dark place where people are running around with no direction, as Aaron has mentioned on numerous occasions, and it's starting to be very, very murky in these waters if it hasn't already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the very least, murky. It's a swamp, man. We need Trump to fucking drain the damn
Oh,
swamp.
snap. Damn, they're taking us down, man. Damn, we have gone all three now. Jeez.
Yeah, nah, this is definitely our last podcast.
Donald Trump, LGBTQ, shit. Not toxic masculinity. Yeah, we've hit all the hot button ones.
Oh yeah, if we don't get canceled after this, bro,
Yeah,
then we got something good. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? For real.
yeah. We got some
Because
on our hands.
yeah, or if I don't get canceled at the very
For real,
least, you know what I'm saying? They might let you slide,
they're gonna say,
but they definitely come for my
you're
ass.
gonna be like, hey, so your co-host, he's got to go. I don't know what you're gonna do, but he's got to go. He's got to go. We can't have that type of energy on this platform. And I'm like, to the mirror, to the mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike. You know what's crazy though? Our views aren't even up there like that yet. So it probably won't happen till like a couple of months, maybe a year, until we really start to pop, and then someone's gonna stumble across these videos, and that's gonna bring us down. Not to say that our what we're saying is gonna change, because no, it'll still be the same.
Right.
But I'm just saying that's probably how it will happen. Like, oh, the episode that really brought it all down is season 2, episode 9 or 10.
Oh yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah, they're gonna come for us hard and be like, hey, I'm like, well, so can you guys speak about this where you were talking about this time? I'm like, oh man, took y'all long enough. We already got we already had this ready, so we marked every
Yeah,
episode
right?
that was gonna be quote unquote problematic for y'all. So hey, have at it. Ask us what you need to ask so we can move this on. We got
Facts.
season 5 coming around the corner. Last week.
Season 5's around the corner. You guys talking about season 2?
Yeah, come on. All right, man. This was an amazing conversation. I feel like we've touched a number of different areas within this topic, and I'm very curious to see what the masses have to say with regards to our many points that we've illustrated. One for the books. We ain't playing.
Yeah, to wrap it up, I would just say, like you said, I'm curious to see how the masses are going to respond to this. Again, I would hope that they would not do the easy thing and respond emotionally, that they would challenge themselves to try to see things objectively, to not only help make this world a better place, but to make their world a better place.
Yes, perfect. That is exactly what we needed to all hear. And I think this is something that, again, guys, we're here for it. You know what I'm saying? We exude this energy that you guys so desperately want to eradicate. And if you have questions, comments, concerns, please do not hesitate, to broach us. We have all these different platforms now ready and able for your review. And I would definitely hope that you, again, as Aaron mentioned, listen closely, listen intently and with purpose. And from there, create your own opinion by which you can then hopefully productively move about, your day with. All right, guys. This is M.A.S Media signing out.
Are you sure about that?